Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Varun Kapoor, co-founder of Aiyo Labs and Uri Design. Varun is a graduate of Bournemouth University, and he has worked for companies like Avon before starting his own venture in 2013. Hi Varun, welcome to ELI.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you for having me here.
Varun, I would request you to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
So as you briefly mentioned, Priya, I think the previous thing to that was that I grew up in Bangalore, went to the Valley School until 10th standard, at which point I went to the UK, did 11th and 12th over there, and then went to Bournemouth University, as you mentioned. I then had a job in the UK working for a company called Avon Protection. Avon used to make gas masks for the US military. So it was an interesting company to work for, especially straight out of college with military budgets. They had a lot of money to spend. So it was exciting as a sort of fresh graduate, but it was a great company, but it was somewhat a defense and war related company, and that didn't sit so well with me. So after 2 years, they came back to India to start my first company, which was Uri Design. That was a consultancy, so building things for other people. Although you mentioned I'm still founder at Uri Design, that company is no longer really operational. That's what it says on LinkedIn, but we phased that out completely. A few years into that company, yeah, we grew that company to a team of about 23 people at its peak, but felt that my heart was not in it, making things for other people, and I wanted to sort of pursue my own sort of entrepreneurial thing with our own product. I would not call the first company a startup. It was just services. So it was just buying and selling time, right? So somebody tells you they want a website for this much, you make a small profit on that and then sell it on. But now the second company, Aiyo Labs, is a lot more exciting. Effectively, what we have is a WhatsApp API. And in India, WhatsApp API, there's a clear demand. And yeah, you fill that need with a WhatsApp API. So that's the quick journey. That's where we are now. Aiyo Labs has now been operational for about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. Yeah.
Okay. Now, coming to Aiyo Labs, please tell us with what vision have you built Aiyo Labs? What do you intend to do in long run?
Yeah. So, I mean, in all fairness, Priya, I don't know if we tick those boxes of having a vision and a story and all of those wonderful things that perhaps entrepreneurs should have. I think it started off out of boredom from our other company, where what I realized is that we were not able to scale it because I was personally involved in every project. And what that meant for me was that all these projects were being managed on WhatsApp. So I think like a lot of us, everybody probably watching this video has about 100 WhatsApp groups that are related to work, right? So even though you're not supposed to have WhatsApp groups, not supposed to share your phone number, etc., WhatsApp is so central to the way we're doing work. So whilst we were in that other company, this sort of insight came to us, hey, you know what, why don't we try to build something around WhatsApp? And when we did this, we were very lucky. I was very lucky in the time because we decided to shut down the other company, but in the meantime found this niche for WhatsApp, and the Karnataka elections were going on. So Karnataka in 2018, the word on the street was the elections were going to be won or lost on WhatsApp. So with that on mind, we started building a whole range of technology around WhatsApp, simple tools at first, and then getting better and better. And that's how this journey started, right? So I think it wasn't that we decided to go out and solve communication at a population scale. We stumbled upon this sort of wonderful space. Since then, we've grown and now serve politics. In fact, we're sort of phasing out politics completely. I would say the vision now is the company that we aspire to is a cross between Twilio and MailChimp. So as easy to use as MailChimp, as convenient to use as MailChimp, but as powerful and as versatile as Twilio. That's sort of where we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since you have mentioned about politics and elections, and we all know that US election is approaching. we would like to have a discussion on what is the impact of digital mediums, especially the WhatsApps and Mailchimps of the world on day-to-day politics, and you have been a part of it as well. And lately, there has been some concerns on these platforms affecting the results of outcomes of elections and all. And lately, what you have been seeing is political parties. They have teams that handle digital communications. Especially, these are the things that decide whether a party wins or loses the election. Having said that, would like to hear your view on how digital is impacting the politics and the
Sure.
teams which handle.
Uh, Interesting question, and I think there's various schools of thought there, right? One school of thought I would say is that it has a huge impact, right? For example, when somebody says the elections are going to be won or lost on WhatsApp in India, that gives huge importance to the platform. I think it might be true in many cases. I mean, we've all heard stories that the BJP has this 50,000 WhatsApp groups in each state where they're able to sort of disseminate information en masse at scale. I don't think that is so easy to do. I think, to be fair to sort of big tech, they are clamping down on that kind of those loopholes. They are preventing it. In fact, even Facebook in the US elections on the 28th of October, you're not allowed to create a new political ad post the 20th of October. So 1 week, in the 1 week build up to the US elections, no more new Facebook ads are allowed, right? So they're doing small steps. I mean, that might be, they could have done a lot more, but that might be a small step. I think Google has also a political advertising policy in place. So I would say these tools do have an impact, and I think, and that is also something that has kept me up at night, because as much as I would like to say that, hey, I'm just the guy that provides the tech, not the message. Unfortunately, the technology is powerful. For better or for worse, the technology is powerful. So we have to decide what message we can't be ignorant to the message. I think initially I turned a blind eye to the message and said, look, I'm just building the tech, you can say what you want, right? But it's not our place to say, it's not for me to say who is right and wrong, but we just are aware that tech can play a role. Priya, I forget the question. I don't know if I'm answering the question, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
There is no
I think tech is powerful. I think tech is powerful, and any tech provider that feels they are just a medium is purposefully turning a blind eye, me included. Me included.
okay. Uh, you have studied in UK, and you have been exposed to the foreign cultures, and you must have seen the kind of society they have there. And in European countries, the laws are very stringent, especially when it comes to privacy and all. There is GDPR, and there is similar laws. But when it comes to India, I believe all such laws are just for the sake of being there. They are not being followed. And lately, what we have been seeing in the TV media, especially, a lot of hate content being thrown at people, and people seem to enjoy it, and there is no regulation around it. I would like to hear your comment on the future of Indian people and Indian digital mediums, and how they can be made better.
Priya, you asked me some very big questions, and whatever I say, it's just my view. I don't really know the answer to anything that you've really asked me today.
Okay.
But how, so the question is like, how can, like, from a policy perspective, what do you're asking me if I was a policymaker, what policies I would put in place, given that I have a background sort of overseas, to control the media a little bit more, so that hate speech is not sort of disseminated in India so widely. Is that the sort of question?
Uh, there is no question actually. I would just like to hear your view, like what kind of what is needed in India. You see, uh, Facebook, YouTube, and all, they are all foreign companies trying to dominate Indian mindsets, and they have captured our minds like anything. What can be a possibility as per you, and what do you see? Let's say in next 5 years, what do you see India becoming in terms of the digital space? It's a very open-ended question.
So fair enough. Like I think, and I don't know if it's just India, but I think India maybe more the pros about a quote unquote Western society, right? A Western society is more individualistic.
Mhm,
Typically, that's what people say, at least. But the one pro for a Western mindset is that it does allow you to make decisions on your own, right? People live alone at a younger age, they move out of the parents' house, they are more financially independent, so the state is there to back them up and has that cushion. That all of that is true, but you are thinking for yourself a lot earlier. If I was being overly critical about India and the Indian mindset, I think a lot of times people fall into habit patterns that they aren't aware of and that have been given to them, right? And it's unfashionable to sort of to to think in some ways, right? um Maybe that of course that's changing. I think the one space where it's encouraged to think and be yourself and find a new idea, etc., is entrepreneurship. So in that sense, India, like, like, come on, do what you want, find the problem. What is the problem? Identify a pain point. Let's solve for that. That's great, but it's also like solving in a capitalistic way,
mhm,
where there's a clear reward mechanism. I think society needs people to do the same, to question on that level with the same vigor, but to not perhaps have a monetary outcome at the end of it to affect societal change, to affect change at the policy level. And there are people doing that, and I admire those people greatly. I don't think I'm one of them. I wish I was doing more. Um, yeah, I think big tech does have a place to play. I think, unfortunately, and it can become one of those horrible situations where somewhere else in the world they've understood the perils of social media, etc., and adjust for it. But we are again lagging behind in our the way we tackle this, just like pollution and sort of greenhouse gases. Whatever the US, the Europe are 30, 50 years ahead of us. Will we, for 50 years, will an entire generation be brainwashed, and then will we only then see what to do? I hope not, right?
mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I, 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 I don't know if you have kids, Priya, but I wonder if I was a parent, if I would allow, or what I would do. You don't want to restrict free speech or like allow somebody to make their own decisions, and don't want to take away social media from anyone. That's not fair. But if I had my own child, I wonder how I would treat him or her. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Since we have discussed, since we have mentioned the term capitalism and socialism, I would like to hear your point. Of course, this is not related, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on what India as a society is becoming. Our DNA was more of being valuing community more than our individual selves. But slowly, what we have seen, India is progressing towards a capitalistic economy where winner takes it all. And when you see other countries like US, the move is totally opposite. People are now preferring to be conscious about nature and be more responsible about their action. Money and reward shouldn't drive all the actions. Having said that, again, would like to hear your point of view on what is India becoming as a society, not leave alone digital and everything, as a society.
Look, fair enough. I mean, I can't make the statement about the 1.3 billion people. I think one important one, as you know, Priya, as anybody living in India sort of knows, within India there exists like multiple different Indias, right?
Hmm.
Um, uh, what do I think India is becoming? I think on one level, people people that have had this sort of overseas experience, etc., and everything that comes with it, maybe a foreign education, see that, right? That see that, like, as you say, like, and those are very broad strokes, but that a sense, like a sense of community, is once again becoming important, as is sort of vegetarian food and organic, sort of healthy food, not pesticides, not monoculture, etc., right? All of that is starting to become important. um, and in some ways effectively looking backwards. So I think, like, some of India as a society sees that, yeah, I mean, I'm afraid to say, but like a lot of Indians do just ape the West, right? In whatever way. And it's at what point of the time scale you're looking at. If you're looking at the currently what's happening in the West, yes, people are looking back in time. So part of India is also looking back in time, and co-living spaces and sort of communities and all of that is also now coming on some level in India. I don't think all is lost or any such thing. Um, yeah, I mean, I just hope, like, I hope we don't run out of time, that we don't run out of resources before, because I do feel, what do I feel? Fine, I'm going to say it, right? I feel like the sum total of all of us, from wherever we are, we're heading in the wrong direction. We're going to destroy the country in terms of the natural resources and building roads and putting wires everywhere across everything. I don't think it's the best direction we're headed. Um, and I'm guilty of it. I don't think I'm doing enough to change it. Yeah, that's what it is. I think maybe there's a lot of people like me, we see the problem, but we don't act. And we're happy to sort of say that, yes, this is how it is, this is how it should be, etc. But I wonder, maybe that's the most Indian thing, right? Like, so when in the West, when there's actually protests about Black Lives Matter, and people, well, in India, to be fair, like the CA, people actually got out on the streets and did something. But in the West, people are actually getting out and revolting and protesting. And I wonder if in India we actually do enough of that, right? Actually get off and try to affect change. Um, Other than, though, to be fair, Indian people do work really hard in entrepreneurial context, right? Like, so get up, put in 14-hour days in front of a laptop. That I think people do. And maybe I'm talking about myself here. I think that is something I do. I'm not afraid of putting in 14-hour days, 16-hour days. But when I want to affect change on a societal level, that I feel like, hey, this is overall going bad for everybody. If I add up everybody's part, I don't know what I'm doing in that front. Priya, I have not at all answered your questions, and I'm sorry. But yeah.
It's all right. I think we have got a lot of interesting perspectives, and that is where I'm. That is how I come to my next question as well. Uh, Talking about the next generations, because entrepreneurs are going to come from the next generation. Uh, uh, the kids who are 10 years of age, 15 years of age now, their education, of course, the structured education has stopped there, learning from Byju's and White Hat Junior, and many of them are just getting educated from WhatsApp University. Having said that, there is no doubt about it that they will never get a very structured education, at least the future I can see, it's gone. Having said that, how does it affect entrepreneurship? Do we see more entrepreneur because there is no structure? They have the ability now to explore themselves the way they deem fit, or they will just lose track of everything and get lost?
No, I don't think the latter. I think the former. That in the sense that the lack of structure will cause people to see things differently, and it will no longer be mandatory that whole flow, right from whatever it is, like graduate, get a degree, get a job, get married, have children. That whole thing will start to be questioned. I believe, and be questioned at a deeper level. I think we do, our generation, if I can put us in the same generation, Priya, but we do question it, but we question it quite as strongly and as deeply, right? Like, we still say entrepreneur, yeah, you're doing something different. I don't think maybe it won't be seen as something different. It might be seen as the norm, right? And that's a good thing. I mean, I think it'll build upon that you can actually set your own structure for everything. Because from a young age you are no longer subject to that routine, that preconceived notion of what a school year should look like. Yeah. So I think entrepreneurship will, yeah, thrive, and it perhaps will become the norm.
Okay. Now we'll also get into your personal journey as an entrepreneur. Now I would like to hear from you, when it all started, when how did it happen that you quit your job, the 9 to 5 job where you get paid a monthly salary? How did you get out of that system and went into a different cycle?
So, like, I admittedly, Priya, I don't think my personal story is one of too much struggle and thing. I do admit, and I am fully aware that I come from a relatively privileged background. In that I had to begin with this whole foreign education and then got a job in the UK. I left that job almost for sort of my idea of what was right and wrong, because it was a war company and that didn't sit well with me. My granddad was my mother is also an entrepreneur in some ways, but my granddad was definitely an entrepreneur initially, and I think it for some, what I don't understand, I don't know why, but like I always just assumed I would run my own business. It was not a question in my mind. It was not that there was family pressure to take this route. That was just not there for me. Though I appreciate that for other people it is a challenge. In terms of the financial resources, like I did save up some money in England, but I feel like although I've never had to lose money or borrow money from my family, I feel for this entrepreneurial journey, that is for education and all, of course I've had that luxury. That being said, like I've always had that cushion to fall back upon if things go wrong. So in that sense, my entrepreneurial journey has not been as severe as life and death as I feel it can be for other people, because I always feel like I've had the support, and not just emotional, like that money part of it is there if needed, right? And that is something that I hope India as a society and as a future, it would be lovely if we had that little bit of a cushion that we could afford people to, you can go out, you are allowed to make a mistake, and it doesn't mean your life is over. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, the finance part is sorted. How did you find the people to take your vision forward?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I mean, how did I find them? I think it was just a common, pure luck, maybe, right? Like especially the first guy that decides to join your vision, like he's also a little bit mad, right? To believe in something that there's this one guy. Yeah, when we started, I had rented like one empty house, and then I called him for an interview and said, "Hey, do you want to join?" He said, "Who else is in the company?" "No one else. It's just this guy is committing to coming and sitting in an empty house with just you, right? And he's never met you before, etc., etc." So that is bravery on his part. But then once that first person joins, it all becomes easier, right? So like if you convince the first person, the second person is not going to come sit in a room with just you, it's going to with two other people, etc., etc., and it just sort of flowed from there.
Okay.
The co-founder also used to be effectively be an employee initially, and then became co-founder.
Hmm.
Because this is my second company, right? So in the first company, it was a services company. He used to help me with some work over there. We shut down that company, and then now he's co-founder at this second company.
Okay. And what are the challenges you have faced so far? You make it sound like a very smooth journey as an entrepreneur, but I am sure there would be challenges.
No. That's absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the what are the challenges? Look, so as much as I say, like I had the support and this financial thing, of course, there's been challenges. I mean, every day, so many, Priya. I don't know which ones to start with. I think one of the worst things that happened in my life, and I can't get into too much detail, but effectively, I was sued by a company in Saudi Arabia, and this is very early on in this sort of career.
Mhm.
And for 6 months, I was a complete mess. It took a lot of mental struggle and toll and all of that, and I still believe it was unfairly applied to me, etc., etc. But in the end, it was not such a large sum of money. Whatever money I had to return that money. It was about $10,000. But early on in the day, that $10,000 was very, very important, and it took 6 months away from my life.
Hmm.
6 months of like tension, and then another 3 months of like getting enough confidence to continue. And then, of course, I questioned myself, like, am I cut out for this, etc., etc. So that is one thing. I think that was definitely a challenge, right? I mean, that was a challenge on a level of questioning myself. I think there's of course challenges in the specifics of the business. That was not specific to the business. That could have happened to anyone at any stage. But that happened, I believe, disproportionately early in my entrepreneurial journey to get into that level of legal trouble, right? So that was a big headache for me initially. What are my challenges now? I mean, cash flow has always been a challenge, right? Cash flow is like always a challenge. Like, how do we have enough money to pay bills, salaries, so on and so forth? That is a forever thing. I think touch wood, really, right? Now we finally got into a place where we're relatively more stable, and challenges now are scaling, hiring better, prioritizing clients, sort of, and then setting the tone for the next 12 months, 24 months. That becomes important, right? Do we go after, what type of clients do we go after? Yeah. I mean, compared to before, if I'm honest with myself, and it's nice to reflect in this sort of conversation, I think the problems we have now are much nicer problems. Yeah.
Okay. Varun, I have another interesting question, and I think you are in a better place to answer this question. Uh, what I have seen in case of Indian founders and co-founders, they don't follow ethics very strictly. Sometimes they are willing to put ethics in the back of the. So what I'm trying to say is, ethics is not a big concern for a new company. All they care about is money and cash flow, especially in case of Indian founders. This is what I have seen. I'm not blaming everyone, just that many of them are so concerned about the cash flow business, cash flow side of the business. Why this is happening is a lot of it has to a lot of it is happening because Indian laws are not very strict. You can just bypass law. You can find a lot of loopholes. Also, even if you are get if you get sued by anyone, it will take at least 10 years time to get to a conclusion. So that there is no fear of no getting sued or following unethical practices. This is one real concern that I have seen, especially happening in the startups. What would be your suggestion to founders? Why ethics is crucial, even if it is a startup?
So if you're asking me for advice for startups like that, I would say, I would say that, look, one day you will win. One day your startup will be a success. And when you look back at your life, if you've done something that's not so clean, you'll hate yourself for it, right? So you won't be able to live with yourself for it. So you might as well die poor and die happy than die rich but have done something really shitty in your past, right? I mean, that's the top level advice. Yeah. But Priya, I wouldn't be so critical on just Indian founders. I think across the world, I think in India it's done in a more blatant way. But I think when you're starting up, I think you are presented with this thing like, hey, you know what, I could uh, do something. And I like there I disagree with you to say Indian founders are like this. I think I've seen it in other countries as well.
Okay.
I think it's a thing of founders, right? Like the desperation to just make this a success. Like sometimes skews your vision on viewpoint as to what is important. Um, uh, yeah, that is what happens, I believe. But I would say to everyone, and perhaps remind myself, that one day things do work out. As much as you struggle day in and day out, suddenly things start to go well. And when they do go well, you don't want to live with that thing that you did or didn't do. And yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think we are almost done with the questions. I have only two questions left. What are
All right.
some of the interesting lessons you have learned during your journey as an entrepreneur, which our audience can also learn the easy way?
Priya, I'm not prepared. Like one, I don't have a bite-sized sort of piece of wisdom to share with everyone.
Okay.
Um, I I think one thing that I've gotten that has helped my personal life a lot recently, as well as the business at large, is slowly letting go of control of everything. So
Mm,
trusting other people more. I think as an entrepreneur, you hold on very tightly. I think so in one bite-sized lesson, it is like trust other people also. Yeah.
okay. Do not
I mean,
micromanage.
you have to check. You have to, yeah. Don't micromanage. You have to check. Do have to constantly cross-check, etc., etc. But there's a balance. One thing is being totally anal about the whole thing, and one thing is like you have to trust that the other person has your best interest, the company's best interest at heart. They're not trying to do it wrong. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. And my final question: how would you suggest our audience to start their journey as entrepreneurs?
Uh, how would I suggest it? I mean, you can always start. I think anybody with an idea can always start. I think the wonderful thing about technology is that the cost to execute an idea comes down every day. To quickly build a website, or if you're selling something, just a WhatsApp business account, and you can start WhatsApp app. I mean that business app, and you can list your whatever it is and start selling just directly on WhatsApp. Right. So I think you can nurture that entrepreneur in you quite easily now. So just, yeah, not be afraid. I think in this last whatever 40 minutes that we've been talking, I think the one thing that is becoming important is, like, I would, if I can say to an entrepreneur, whatever, like, don't forget that ethical element, and don't forget that societal element, and what you do does matter. What you do with your time does matter. So pick something that is important to do, not just that something that can make money. I'm giving all this advice, Priya. I'm not taking it myself. I think I need to, like, think about what I say. But anyway, yeah, yeah.
Okay. If you have any final message, you can say it now. Otherwise, we'll close the session.
We can close the session. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was a great pleasure to have you here at ELI.
Thanks
I
for your
think
time.
our audience would have got lifetime lessons from this video. Thanks, Varun, for your time, and our best wishes for all the ventures you'll build in future.
Thank you for your time, Priya. I appreciate your time and giving me.
Viewers, you can follow and connect with Varun on LinkedIn by typing Varun Kapoor. Also, to visit their website by typing iolabs.com. That is it for today's episode. We'll be back with another exciting entrepreneur. Stay tuned to ELI.